This is the Gentleman Podcast brought to you by Shane and Josh. Now, before we begin, have another glass of water.
I think I'm set for jeans.
No, you're not set for jeans, Cal.
These are fine.
They're not fine. You have a mom butt. Is that what you want?
Why don't we just go to the Gap? You know what? They have us. Okay. What are you doing?
Cal, be better than the Gap. Be better than the Gap. Say it.
I'm better than the Gap.
So to be clear, I don't really have a huge problem with the Gap. I mean, I do have a few nice pieces of clothing from that. But if we're listening to Ryan Gosling and Steve Carell, Crazy Stupid Love, the point is not to just settle for that's okay, that's fine, that's good enough. And I think that's a really good little message as to why you're unfortunately not going to get a full episode tonight. So I'm hoping that we're not the only ones that have ever done this. My hope is that some of the listeners have unfortunately found themselves in the same position, which is
You bite off a little more than you can chew. You know, whether you're at work and say you have a promotion coming up or a promotion opportunity coming up and you sit there and you say, yeah, I can do this. I can do X, Y, and Z by Monday. I can do X, Y, and Z by Friday. And you didn't really give it the thought it deserved and give yourself and your employer a realistic expectation. And then you set yourself up, not necessarily to fail, but maybe not look quite as good as you had hoped. Same thing. Maybe you're in school and you have a group project, and maybe you sit there and you jump onto a group of four and you say, I can do the work of 3/4 of this group if you guys just take care of X. And then you're 3 weeks into this group project and it doesn't work out, and you've bit off a bit more than you can chew. That's what we did here. And man, it was an adjustment, and we are adjusting on the fly again. And we're trying to take a little bit more pride in the content and the quality of the content that you're going to be getting, hopefully come January 15th.
And I think what it is when you find yourself in those situations, you are inevitably faced with two choices. And the choice at hand, at least in my experience, is to go with the Gap jeans that give you the mom butt, or put a little more effort in and really seek out those slacks that are going to do the work for you. And so that's what it is here. We don't want to give you just good enough. We want to say we're willing to put forth that extra bit of effort. And in the case of the schoolwork or the job, it may be like, guess what? You're going to have to pull an all-nighter to get it to the standards where it deserves to be, and that you can do, but it hasn't quite come together yet. There were challenges you've had and things you've had to figure out. And so that's the point here, is that this is our mea culpa. This is a mini episode, and it's all about how we're going to make it better and what we're facing with.
And we owe it to one another, and frankly, we owe it to you, the listeners, as well.
Yeah, and so basically, this is going to segue beautifully into the episode we are going to give you. The gentlemen are going to give you a really good episode on the 15th of January. And in that episode, we're going to talk about goals, expectations, how to set realistic goals and realistic expectations. Shane, would you say that we have set realistic expectations and goals for ourselves recently?
I'd like to weigh in and say no. We absolutely overshot this. We took a guy who's never podcasted before and another guy who has forgotten the process of beginning a podcast because he's been so deeply rooted into his other 15 podcasts and thought, sure, we're good here. Let's start in 2 weeks. I would say that was incorrect.
I would say that I think you're being a little harsher on yourself than you should. I think that what Shane and I have done for the fine listeners, the tolerant listeners, the patient listeners over the last few weeks has always been moving closer to our goal. But I think that we have a very specific thing in mind, what we want to do here. We want to make it worth everybody's time. And the last time we recorded, we took a listen, and I think Shane would agree the content was getting closer.
Yeah, for sure.
But it a little bit sounded like a puppy being fed into a blender.
Which isn't great for anyone.
Not good. Especially when the blender might have already had a cat inside of it too. So the point was it didn't really sound good. And this goes to being better than the Gap. We could have cleaned it up a little bit, ran it through some filters and whatnot, but the biggest challenge here is that, unfortunately, given pandemic, Shane and I are not in the same room. We have two completely different recording devices and setups, and what I do for video is very different than what we're trying to do here, just for more audio capture.
Not awesome to not be in the same room. Obviously, being someone who's podcasted for 3 years, if you've come over from the AMYP network to listen to this show, you understand. I mean, you've been with us through the process of getting audio right. We used to sound like that cat and dog mixed in a blender, and then we got that smooth kind of quality sound that you've grown accustomed to. That comes in part with the fact that we're in a real studio. We've made the office here in my home a studio that has all of the same equipment. We have everyone's levels balanced out, which we unfortunately don't have the luxury of doing in a pandemic. And Josh being in a different room and never having used the type of equipment that we have here.
Yeah. And, my home office is set up completely different, where Shane's is set up perfectly for recording. Mine's set up perfectly for pornography.
So Josh could see me. I was taking a drink of water, and he knew the perfect time to say that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So much.
I didn't fill in to the listeners is that the watching of pornography or the creating of pornography, we'll leave that to themselves. No. But again, we just have two different places. And so what we decided was it was very important to both of us that we did drop something on the first. We gave you guys a commercial previously, and we're hopeful that we were going to be able to really get something that we could both feel good about. And not just, again, content-wise. We want this to be a pleasurable listening experience. It doesn't help if I'm like razors on a chalkboard here. So we're taking a little bit of a step back. We're still feeling pretty good that we're going to hit that 15th of January. And what you're getting today is, for lack of better words, a small preview of what we're going to be doing. And so the setup is each week we're going to tie ourselves to a little bit of a movie quote in the beginning. And we're going to show you how we think that connects to the theme of the show. And so today, again, this isn't going to be a full-length episode, but it's all about an explanation of being better, trying to shoot for a goal, and not just accepting good enough if you know you can do better. And I know that Shane can do better. I'm putting this all on his shoulders. Absolutely, Shane, you need to make this be better.
I do. I have to be better than the Gap. My mom understands the Gap is not suitable for me any longer. No, it's look, this is a different experience for me in podcasting so far, and this is nothing against the other groups and the other people that I work with and have worked with for the last 3.5 years of podcasting. But this is the first time where the most important thing is the quality of that sound and the quality of the content and how those two things work together for your listening experience. Previously, it was about establishing a network and just reaching out any way that we could and putting out as much content as possible. And we have grown, or I have grown to a point that is no longer acceptable, and frankly shouldn't have been acceptable in the beginning. And then bringing on someone like Josh, who's has had his own creative processes, is involved in other creative processes right now, understands the importance of quality, and to have a partner to work through this bit with, and to challenge one another to say this isn't quite it yet, really encourages me and excites me to say, look, when we do finally drop really good or any particular full length show, so as we again hope on January 15th, we're going to be really proud of that. And we're going to be really excited to give that to you guys to listen to.
And like I said, this is it's a learning experience for both of us. It's a learning experience for you as well. And this is really going to set up perfectly to what we were planning to talk about for our first episode, and which will be our first full-length episode, which is, as I said, goals, expectations. If you walk away with nothing else here, the hope is that when you have an idea, when you have a vision of something, and you know that it's what you want to do, whatever that is, creatively, or your attire, your dressing, whatever. If you can see it, you really have to work to try to make that a reality. And you never want to get blind to, what's the quote? Perfect is the enemy of good. And there comes a time and a place where sometimes there can be something that you're like, this is good enough, and you can walk away from that. But there are other times where if it warrants putting in the extra man hours, going the distance, I had a contractor once at my house, and he was doing all my drywall work. And I'm pretty handsy. I do a lot of the stuff myself. Like, I framed everything out. And he was so far above and beyond what I was expecting. He was a recommendation from a good friend of mine. And the long and the short is, we started talking about it, and I told him, I was like, I'm really impressed. And I know a lot of carpenters and contractors. And I was like, Bobby, I'm really impressed with what you did. And he said, well, yeah. He's like, that's my name on that. And if I'm going to put my name to something, I want it to be good. And that really stuck with me, because I was like, yeah, he's whether you're a doctor or you're hanging drywall, like it's a reflection of who you are, what your personal standards are, whatever your thing is. And you set those standards, you set what's quote unquote good enough. But if you're not hitting what's good enough for yourself, the question should be like, how can I make this better? What can we do?
Yeah, I think it comes down to taking pride in all things that you put effort and energy towards. If you're hanging drywall, if you're a surgeon, if you're an athlete, if you're a musician, whatever it is that you do, look, you may have a job that you really loathe. That might be really difficult to go to 40 hours a week, but you should still go in there and approach that day in a way that says, hey, I'm going to take pride in the things that I accomplish here today, and let that be the thing that I take home with me, not the struggles of that work. So it really does come down to, how prideful are you about what it is that you're putting out into this world? And for us, we know that what we've recorded over the last 2 weeks could be better. And kind of tying into the show that we will, we'll be putting out on the 15th about goals and expectations, this was just a moment to sit here and reassess, and to be really honest with ourselves about the way that this process has gone thus far. And we have not failed in that respect. We've just learned maybe we need to try something a little bit different. And that's where we continue to learn. And hopefully through that process, again, you'll have a really strong show that you can really enjoy come the 15th.
And I think that's exactly right, Shane. It's really all about the learning process. And that's what this is. And I feel better, and I feel supported, which we can talk a moment about that if you like. It's really great to be working with someone creatively, where you feel the kind of support that you can talk to that person and say, I don't think this is up to snuff. And I trust your instincts, and I know that you're telling me that it's as good as so many other, in this particular case, it's as good as so many other podcasts, you know what I mean, in terms of quality. Like, yeah, there's plenty of other people that are doing this level, but that wasn't the conversation. And to say, yeah, I hear what you're saying, but is this good enough for what we both would want to listen to? Is this good enough for this? And to have someone that be like, okay, I see your point, be able to talk about it. Like, that's really what you're trying to look for. Now we're a little bit off, but again, not too far off. But that's what I think what you're trying to look for anytime you're working with someone, whether that's professionally, creatively, a romantic partnership. You want someone that you can have an open dialogue about. Yeah, we have the same vision. Maybe how we get to that is a little bit different, but we both know what, quote unquote good looks like, and we both know what bad looks like, and then you can be on the same page.
So I think it comes down to active listening versus passive listening, which again, I'm very lucky and fortunate to be working with Josh, someone who will hear my concerns or doubts, and I can bounce those concerns or doubts off of, and we can have a good and healthy dialogue about them.
I'm sorry, what were you saying, Shane? I wasn't listening. No, that's absolutely correct. That's absolutely correct. And so, hopefully someone at home might be thinking, well, this is something I want to do. What can I take? What's my real takeaway from this? Find yourself people that you can trust, and find the people whose opinions matter, and the people that won't just tell you what you want to hear. Find the people that
push you.
The people that are willing to say to you, there's a lot of good stuff here, whatever this endeavor or whatever it is, but there going to be some areas to work on. And so that's really what this is when you think about it. We're being better than the gap. There's nothing wrong with the gap, but we both are saying we know we can do better. Let's take the extra time. Let's put the extra effort in. And that's what it is. Shane, do you have any examples before we start wrapping up? Can you give a specific example?
So I've always worked in fields where you're required to present yourself fairly professionally. That does not mean that what the dress codes were, for lack of a better term, were the way that I would like to present myself. Working now in finance and banking, I certainly dress a little bit differently than that of some of my coworkers, and that's not a shot to them. It's not a shot to the dress code and the expectations of our industry. It's just, this is something that's important to me. I would like for when clients come in that they feel comfortable having a conversation with someone because of the way that they carry themselves. And part of that is the way that you dress. So for me, it maybe it's wearing the sports coat, even if it's the dead of summer out there and it's 100 degrees in that office. Maybe it's wearing a vest. Maybe it's wearing a pocket square. Maybe it's just simply like just taking care of like your natural hygiene, like fix your hair, shave, brush your teeth, like just basic things. That's really important. So when people come in, look, we're all super visual, right? So when people see you and meet you, like that is the very first thing people will notice. And if it looks like you're disheveled and that you don't care, that says a lot about your personality. Again, it comes back to that pride thing. And for me, attire and the way that I present myself is something that, one, I enjoy just because I enjoy it. Two, it's really important because I want that first time that someone meets me for that to be part of the full picture that gets continued to be built throughout that evening or throughout that meeting. That's what's really important to me.
I think what Shane's talking about is he has a personal standard, and he's gonna uphold to that. That means he's checking off the minimum of what the requirements are, but he's not just going to go for the minimum. And it kind of goes to that thing of what is it? You don't get a second chance to make a first impression.
Yep.
And that's what we're going for. When I go to work, I often wear pants, which is
it's a good start.
Yeah. In these COVID times, I know that's weird, but I still think pants should be worn. Crazy.
Look,
it's crazy.
I'm there with you. I am there with you.
So I think that's a good place to say that our commitment to everyone, hopefully you've had a couple laughs on this one, and that you're willing to bear with us during technical difficulties and holiday season and all these things, with the hope that in 2 weeks we're going to have a well-polished, entertaining, and hopefully insightful little show for you guys. In the meantime, I think we can listen one more time and bring it all together. And there's nothing wrong with having your own personal expectations, your own personal goals, and trying to live up to those standards as best you can. And in short,
be better than the gap.
think I'm set for jeans.
No, you're not set for jeans, Cal.
These are fine.
They're not fine. You have a mom butt. Is that what you want?
Why don't we just go to the Gap? You know what? They have us. Okay. What are you doing?
Cal, be better than the Gap. Be better than the Gap. Say it.
I'm better than the Gap.
This has been another episode of the Gentleman Podcast, brought to you by your hosts, Shane and Josh. If you've enjoyed tonight's show, we will have additional shows on the 1st and 15th of every month. We also have written content on our blog at www.thegentlemanpodcast.blog. Please be sure to rate and review if you've enjoyed this content, and also share. Share with your friends, share with your family, share with your coworkers, share with strangers on the street. We are your gentlemen, and we thank you for listening.